Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about something that I'm actually surprised I haven't done a video on before. I'm pretty sure I haven't talked about this, or at least I can't remember, and that's climate change, the weather, and chronic illness. For those of you that are chronically ill like myself, we all know that the weather is a pretty big factor in whether we're going to feel good on a given day or not. But I also wanted to touch on climate change a little bit for some people who are dubious about it, or who are kind of like, what does climate change have to do with chronic illness? Well, for people that have Lyme disease, or for anybody that is concerned about Lyme disease, one of the reasons that we're seeing such an increase and why it's becoming so endemic in the United States is because of climate change. So ticks tend to reproduce during the spring and summer. So they like the kind of warmer, milder weather, and that's the best environment for them to reproduce. As climate change has made our winters more mild and not as cold, you basically have an extended spring and summer and an extended window for them to reproduce. So you're going to have a lot more new ticks and a lot more spreading of disease to humans. And so that is one way that climate change can really impact the population. So I am willing to bet that as climate change gets worse, so will the number of disabled and chronically ill people. And ticks don't just carry Lyme disease. They carry other illnesses, other bacterias, and also too there are other illnesses, like I think dengue, which is a tropical illness. And so as you have more wet weather in other parts of the world, then you're probably going to see an increase in those illnesses as well. And dengue can also cause a lot of issues, a lot of complications for people that get it. But the reason that I have started, why this topic came up, and you might notice in some of my other videos, I have talked about possibly moving out of the country. My parents are going to be both fully retired by 2022, and I'm going to have maybe a couple of years to think about where I'm going to move. They are probably going to move to the desert, and I don't do well in hot weather. Here in California, it can get pretty hot during the summer, but the weather is actually great in California. And so I can only imagine if I have trouble during the summer in California, I can only imagine what that's going to be like in the desert of Arizona or Nevada or something. So I know full well that heat is a major factor for me. It can make my neurological symptoms worse. I remember this actually brought back a story. Like, it actually took me back. I started having like flashbacks when I was married. I lived in an apartment with my husband, and in order to save money during the summer, we would kind of try not to turn on the AC. That was a factor. And also, I think like my doctor told me that the AC, could have mold and stuff in it. So it was better for me to just have open windows and have kind of like a cross breeze. So I was like, okay, I'll just leave it off. And I would always notice by like noon or 1 o'clock, which is the hottest part of the day, like my leg would start hurting, my light sensitivity seemed worse. And for whatever reason, I just was not able to put the pieces together. Even though I felt physically hot, I was like, it's hot in here. I would even sometimes take my temperature. My temperature would be elevated. But for whatever reason, like, I just didn't get it until like after the fact, after I moved out of the apartment. I was like, oh, I should have probably had the AC on because the heat was affecting me and making my symptoms worse. And I know that is common with a lot of people with chronic conditions. So heat is a big one. And also too, as part of climate change, we've been having a lot of wildfires here in California. And that obviously affects the air quality. It has been, we have also had very limited rain. I remember as a kid, I clearly remember having a lot more rain. I remember seeing frogs, which is kind of like a very vague memory, but I remember seeing frogs. I have not seen a frog in decades. I now see a lot of lizards, tons of lizards around our house. Um, so the air quality, I know that there are some people that are very affected by air quality. I have not, well, I can't say that I haven't noticed. I just won't go out. I go for a walk every day, but I just won't go out if I know that there's a fire nearby. Last year was really bad when it came to fires. I think 2019 and 2020 were pretty bad. This year was bad as well, but it was more in the north of California, not in Southern California. But we still, because of the winds, we have still been getting, like, you can still smell burning, and we do get some of the ash. I have not noticed a huge impact on me, maybe because I avoid it. But my mom actually, like, she'll go out for walks, even though the air quality is really bad, and she's actually had like dizzy spells and feeling kind of disoriented. And I've told her, I said, that's because you're breathing in, whatever chemicals are being produced from, whatever is burning, because it's not just trees that are burning, it's houses that are burning, and houses have paint and chemicals and all of that. So, it does present a lot of different questions, because, if I do have to move somewhere else, yes, I'll be getting away from the wildfires, but I will also be going into possibly the desert. At least here in California, the weather is milder. I have a backyard, I have a pool, in the desert, even if you have a pool, it is still so hot. Even here in California, I've had days where it's so hot, I don't even want to go in the pool, because I know that I will come, I still, for whatever reason, react to the heat, regardless of whether I'm in the pool or not. Just being outside is kind of, in the direct sunlight can be kind of an issue. I do, I have heard of some people that react to humidity and rain. There are a lot of people with chronic conditions that say that they can feel the rain before it comes, like their joints start hurting or they start feeling foggy. I have not experienced that, or I have not noticed that. Granted, we haven't gotten any really good rain. I think we had a couple of days so far this year that had decent rain, but I have not noticed anything as far as like my body hurting or feeling more foggy. So that's, I'm fortunate, but at the same time, we are also very, very dry here. What I have noticed is dry skin. I have noticed a change in my skin in the last couple of years, and that could be part of my condition. I've also lost a lot of hair, which could be just underlying, the inflammation and all of that. But I have noticed that my skin is now getting drier. That could come with age, or that could also come with a medical condition. And so, or it could come with the changing weather because it's been so dry. So one of the things, I have been looking like at other places, like, possibly going to Mexico. And I mean, I can't go anywhere right now, but I'm just looking at my options. And, there are places in Mexico that are kind of tropical. And I have actually seen a lot of expats from the US. I know one lady, not personally, but I know her from YouTube and from social media. She's got lupus, and she actually went to Merida, which is very hot climate. So I'm kind of like, I didn't realize how hot their climate was. I've been watching a lot of vlogs about, because a lot of expats go to Merida, and I'm very curious to know how she's responded to the weather there, because it gets really hot, and I didn't realize how hot it got there. Because so many people are moving there. I'm like, why would people want to move somewhere where it's so, hot and humid? Humidity also poses another issue, and this is something that I've been learning from watching other people's videos, is that, because to me, given that my skin has been so dry, I have skin issues, I can tell when I put on makeup, it's just, my skin is just so dry and my hair has been so dry. I wonder if going to a more humid climate would help with some of those issues with the skin problems, and also to like my throat is dry. Like I talk as I'm doing these videos and I can feel like I'm getting hoarse. And I wonder if that is just partly the air quality. I know that it's partly my underlying condition. I have like dry mouth and dry eyes. But I started to think about that whether, my living conditions could actually make a difference positively. Because we always think about the negative, like, oh, heat is going to make my symptoms worse. But I actually, for the first time, was wondering maybe if I went to a more humid climate, if that could improve some of the symptoms that I've been having with dry skin, dry mouth, dry eyes, and just, like skin itchiness. I've been having a lot of really itchy skin lately. So that's another thing to consider. What I do know is that very humid climates tend to produce like mildew and mold. So that could be a deal breaker for anybody that has like Lyme disease or any other chronic condition. A mold can be pretty dangerous for those of us who are very, very sensitive. And I have heard that does happen, like mildew in particular can be an issue. So, this is, I can't believe I've never talked about this before, because it is, it's a very, it can be a game changer for some people. And for me, I have noticed, as soon as May rolls around, I am on high alert. I am on edge because I know the summer's going to start and I know that the weather's going to heat up, and I don't like that. So what would that mean if I actually moved to the desert where it's incredibly hot for several months out of the year? Obviously I would have to stay inside, which, I mean, I've been inside for quite some time because of the pandemic, but I wouldn't really even be able to go to the backyard and hang out in the backyard. I don't know if I would even have a pool. Like I said, a pool is nice to have, but if you live in really, really hot weather, a pool is, it kind of doesn't even make it won't help anything because you're going to be hot no matter what. So those are things to think about, especially if you are considering making a move, whether it's like somewhere in the United States or even abroad. And, I've been looking at both because, like I said, eventually my parents will both be retired, and they're going to have to figure out maybe a more economical living situation. And I don't know if I can go with them for many reasons. One of them being my medical care, but another one being the weather. And California is, a lot of people complain about California being very, very expensive, but if you live here, you get it. If you're chronically ill, you really get it because the weather is actually quite nice and quite agreeable. And I have never been chronically ill in a different climate. And that's something that I'm starting to think about. And that I do think I need to consider that very seriously because it can, make or break my condition. I'm either going to have to figure something out and get better somehow, or, deal with the consequences of being in a climate that doesn't agree with my condition. And, another thing too is that I've heard that even if people are inside their homes, for example, if you're inside in the air conditioning, but you live in a desert climate or a hot climate, that the air pressure, I think, like I've heard people talk about this. I don't know how it works exactly, but the pressure in the air still affects you because it's still hot outside, and you may be inside and it feels cooler, but there's still a lot of like air pressure or something because of the heat. I don't know how it works, but there are some people that say that they still feel it. Doesn't matter if they're inside and it's cool and they're not sweating. there's something oppressive about it being hot outside, and it creates some kind of difference in the air pressure. And I mean, I guess that's true, right? Because, I think if you have a balloon in hot weather, it kind of like deflates. And I think that also happens with tires. So I imagine that it could affect a person with a chronic illness. It can just make your body feel different. So those are all things that I have started to think about. And, I was considering, I was like, oh, maybe if I go abroad, I see a lot of people going to Mexico and going to different parts there. And I thought maybe a more tropical climate with, more moisture in the air. And I was, then I really look at the reality of it, and I'm like, well, it could make things worse. It could improve some things, and it could make something else worse. So, it is a tough situation to be in. I still have a few more years. I think we're going to be in California for at least 2 more years. But once those 2 years pass, I think it's really going to be, I'm going to have to figure out what kind of living arrangements, affordable living arrangements are available to me, and where I can go, because things are just, I'm very tied to California because of everything that I have here, my doctors, my medication, and the weather. So, it's really, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one for me. It's kind of scary. 2 years sounds like a long time. But if you think about it, 2019 was 2 years ago. So, it went by very quickly. We had a pandemic all of 2020. We're already getting towards the end of 2021. It's October 2021 as I'm filming this. 2 years goes by very quickly. So if I am looking to move, or if I'm looking for a different place to go, I need to start doing that now. Like, I really need to look at that, look at different options right now, because 2 years is really not that much time. So let me know where you guys are located, and if you guys have noticed that the weather affects your condition. What types of weather help? What types of weather makes it worse? I know altitude can also be an issue. So any of you that live high up, maybe in the mountains somewhere, let me know. And like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys again soon. Take care.